Welcome, it's Denome, and welcome to this crypto update. Now, as you can see, Bitcoin was trading above this bullish trend line for many times, and it had bounces on it many times as well. But last week, we fell below that trend line there. Now, by the end of last week, we did have a bounce on top of that trend line once again. But now we are hitting basically the top of this short-term bearish trend line. So in the next, let's say 48 hours, Bitcoin really has to decide if it wants to continue on the bullish side or if we actually go to the bearish side. Now, if we go to the bullish side, then I do expect explosive growth for Bitcoin for the next couple of months. But if we go to the bearish side here, it doesn't mean that we go to $30,000 and the Bitcoin price completely crashes, but I do not expect any explosive action on Bitcoin price to the upside. And we may even tag even lower numbers from this current basically channel here. So in this video, we will analyze basically fundamentals, technicals, and we look at the most recent news and analyze those to basically decide or analyze where we think the price might go next. Now, before I show you all of that, let me give you guys a quick update on Phemex.com. So as you know, they are sponsoring this channel. If you use this referral code, you can get $4,800 in welcome rewards and much, much more. They have very low trading fees, only 0.01% if you take market taker orders, which are market buy and market sell orders on Phemex. But the update here is that they just opened a new earn protocol where you can earn 5% yield on your USDT cash reserves. And this is a flexible program. You do not have to lock in your USDT. So if you're out of a trade and you don't have anything to do with your USDT, you can earn some extra yield on top of your cash, which is a very cool feature that they just added. So if you want to get started with Phemex, just use the link below or use this referral code here. Now, back to crypto. The most important update in the last 24 hours, in my opinion, is what happened to the Mantra price. So this protocol was over $6 billion in market cap. And in a matter of a couple of hours, 90% of the market cap was washed away. So what happened here is there was a liquidation event. And there's a couple of stories. I don't know which one is right. The first story is that the team basically rug pulled, or the team misallocated funds, and they were using leverage all the way to the upside here. And when the price started to fall down, they basically got liquidated, and that's the end of the story. The other side of the story is that it was an inside job, and they basically rug pulled everybody. I don't know which one of those are true because I don't hold this token. But keep in mind, these things can happen in crypto, so you should not have all of your wealth in altcoins, especially new altcoins that don't have a proven track record. So that's it basically for that update. I don't know much more about it because I don't hold the token. But if you were holding the token, I'm sorry for you guys. This situation is completely shitty. And last time basically we saw something like this is what happened with Terra Luna, and that ended up quite badly for everybody. But I don't think this protocol has as much of a structural problem for crypto as a whole. My opinion on that may change when we get new information on this, but this is basically what happened in the last 24 hours. Now, going into the tariff situation, I do have to report this. I know this is already kind of becoming old news now. China does this, USA does that, China does this, USA does that. Trump flip-flops and this happens and that happens. But there has been actually an important update here, which is that Donald Trump has lifted some of the tariffs basically against China, but other countries also. So phones, computers, SSD storage components, displays, LEDs, basically everything that has to be, let's say, electric. Almost all of electric components and products have been exempted from tariffs. And some people are saying that Donald Trump has folded in this situation. And I do agree with that, but only up to a point. So when I actually ask Grok about this, what do these new tariff exemptions mean? It means that these electrical components and stuff, they are no longer eligible for the 125% tariff, but they are still facing the 20% fentanyl related tariff that the Donald Trump had also imposed on China. So if you buy something from China, you are now, even at the lowest level, you are still paying 20% tariff on the goods. And there's $440 billion worth of goods that previously was entering from China to United States. So 100 billion roughly is the amount that was just exempted. So from these $20 billion per year is the revenue that the United States might be looking at in cash. Now, many companies were basically complaining about this, mostly big tech companies. So I think the biggest pressure came from those against Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump caved for these tariffs. But now China actually struck back. So what happened just in the last, let's say, 10 hours or so? China has halted critical rare earth exports as trade war intensifies. And this is super, super, super important. So, China, for example, is completely controlling 6 heavy rare earth metals, which are available nowhere else except China. And out of all of the rare earth magnets, 90% are currently produced in China as well. And China has basically halted this trade from leaving China completely. And this can be a devastating blow for not only US manufacturing, but manufacturing pretty much everywhere in the world. So factories, for example, Detroit and elsewhere, where they run powerful rare earth magnets, those could be prevented from assembling cars and other products with electric motors that require these magnets. So electrical components, electrical machinery built outside China is currently looking at a potential out of business situation. And this could have devastating effects unless people can make a deal with China and it is resolved. But for example, if we go down here, jet engines, car headlights, spark plugs, computer chips, smartphones, AI, all of these things need these rare earth metals and rare earth magnets. And for example, the most important part, in my opinion, is this here. So China's most famous factory is supplying electric car producers with these magnets, and Tesla is one of those. So if Tesla cannot get these magnets, they cannot basically build those cars, or they have to find a new technology to build those cars. They cannot have replacements for those cars for their engines. So it is a massive blow, at least, for the manufacturing outside China. Now, Elon Musk already came out and basically said or confirmed that it will be a bad situation for him in this post here. And this came out only not too long ago, like 6 hours ago or so. So important to note that what matters is the ability to refine rare earth elementals and manufacture magnets for use in electric motors. So refinement is much more important than to actually mine those rare earth minerals. So for example, lithium, what China has that others lack is the heavy industry of refining the minerals. So he's basically confirming that China is the place where he gets the components for his electric vehicle cars. So this is an extremely strong arm approach from China, basically strangling United States and even United States allies, because these heavy rare earth minerals are also used in missiles, for example, which are used in weaponry. So obviously, I don't know what's going to come out of it. They will, in my opinion, they will have to make a deal. Trump already made some concessions. I think he will make even more concessions, but I hope this goes away soon. Currently, obviously, there's still supplies, there's storages available, but when those storages end, if this is not resolved, then obviously that can cause massive problems, not only for Elon Musk, but pretty much industry everywhere. Let's continue. If we just talk about Bitcoin, Michael Saylor seems to be accumulating more Bitcoin. So he announced this picture here, and every time he talks about these orange dots, these are purchases when he has bought Bitcoin. And he usually posts this chart here right before he announces that he has bought more Bitcoin. Last time he bought Bitcoin was $2 billion worth of it. So let's see how much he buys this time. Also, Metaplanet is buying more Bitcoin, 319 of it, which is obviously nice to see. So we are still seeing accumulation everywhere. But when we take a look at Bitcoin ETFs, we have actually seen outflows from ETFs in the last couple of weeks, which is not too surprising because of the scale of the tariffs and all these things. But what's good here is that the amount of selling is diminishing. When we look at the global supply of Bitcoin in these ETFs, at the peak here, there was 1.3 million Bitcoin in the ETFs. Now there's basically 70,000 less Bitcoin inside them. But the speed at which these have been sold has drastically slowed down already, which is also good to see. So people want to hold Bitcoin. Another cool thing that I want to talk about is this. So, our country was the strongest, believe it or not, from 1870 to 1913. You know why? It was all tariff based. We had no income tax. But when you actually look at this time frame, what else did they have? Not only tariffs, they actually were in gold standard from 1870 to early 1920s. And also 1913 is when the Federal Reserve, basically the fiat monetary machine that everybody knows now, that was implemented in 1913. So Donald Trump here is not only implying that it's tariffs, but also because we were in a gold standard. So in my opinion, what it looks like where the world is going to is USA is losing its status as the biggest economy on the planet. And now they are fighting with China with this trade war to basically they try to reclaim that number one spot as the largest economy. And as they nuke it out, there might be some collateral damage, but that also means currency wars. And basically, when we talk about these rare earth metals, and Donald Trump is talking about a renaissance of industry going back into United States, all of that requires capital. And what is the easiest way to make this capital is obviously if you print more money. And if you print more money, the currency itself becomes debased. And what is the best way to basically hedge against that is gold and also nowadays even Bitcoin. The hedge funds, the ETF issuers, and many of the largest companies are already accumulating Bitcoin, and they're talking about the Bitcoin strategic reserve and so on and so forth. So maybe the next monetary system that we see, it might not be an agreed upon deal. It might just be a slow adoption of more gold and more Bitcoin in this global trade as the payment systems are blocked here but not there. Russia was blocked out of the SWIFT system, but they were managed to basically escape it, and they are using their own systems now, and they are even developing more and more systems. But for global trade, when you're not part of, let's say, the global South block or the global North block, then for them to trust each other, you need some form of neutral currency. That's basically where gold might come back in. That's where Bitcoin could come back in as well. Obviously, that's why gold has been going up in price recently. And when we go to when we look at the amount of money supply in the planet, because the value of the dollar recently has gone down, the M2 money supply of the world measured in dollar terms has actually exploded basically through last week. So this is going up, and usually Bitcoin follows the M2 money supply of the world by some weeks and months. So if this has been going up, it might be that Bitcoin basically once it breaks out of the bearish trend, it might actually follow back to the upside here as well. So I'm hopeful that Bitcoin will follow it. It's not a guarantee, but all in all, printing money is basically how these countries fight this trade war. So they can invest in their own local production and get that started. Now, going into the fundamental analysis or on-chain analytics, there's not really much change here, and that's interesting in my opinion. So for example, how much Bitcoin is outside of exchanges, this number hasn't really changed for the last 3 weeks. Pretty much just flat. Also, when we take a look at the amount of stablecoins on the planet, the stablecoin market cap has also been flat for the last 2 weeks. When we take a look at the amount of holdings in these different brackets, we are not seeing any kind of accumulation with these mega whales or these normal whales. Everything is basically just flat with some changes in the yellow and the orange line. But basically speaking, no change. So we are seeing a lot of holding. But what is interesting here in on-chain metrics is when we take a look at the network realized profit and loss, and we look at the percentage of total supply in of profit in Bitcoin Bitcoin holders. The interesting part, in my opinion, is when Bitcoin did this big tumble here, basically from $97,000 to roughly 86K. Before that, we saw a lot of people taking profit out of Bitcoin. And right now, we haven't seen people basically exiting Bitcoin in mass amounts of profit anymore. So the people who are now selling Bitcoin are basically selling it either at a non-profit, or some of them are selling it at a loss. So this is like a capitulation zone or accumulation zone where companies like MicroStrategy and maybe some other institutions that have been accumulating Bitcoin but just haven't told us yet, they are basically buying the Bitcoin that willing sellers are selling into them, which is quite nice to see. But this is quite interesting, this most latest pump here. When we take a look at the supply of Bitcoin in profit, this was a large pump back to the upside. So some institutions and investors were massively buying this dump here, even though it is not really seen in this on-chain metrics, because we're basically looking at well, if we compare to this peak here, where Bitcoin was $87,000, suddenly more Bitcoin is in profit now than it was at that peak there, which means that this bottom was bought, and that's why when they are at profit, then the supply of Bitcoin holders in profit also went up. So there is definitely accumulation going on, in my opinion here, and that is fundamentally speaking good. Then when we look at short-term fundamentals, in my opinion, a very good indicator for this is when we take a look at the difference between limit buy and limit sell orders. When you see more green, that means that there's a dominance of limit buy orders. When we see a lot of red, that means there's a dominance of limit sell orders. But there was some interesting phenomena that happened here in this pump. Usually when the price goes up, the amount of limit sell order dominance goes up as well. But in this particular scenario, we actually saw the limit sell order dominance go down as the price was going up. And this is very, very, very unusual. It tells me that during this time, people really did not want to sell their Bitcoin anymore. Like less and as the Bitcoin price kept continuing to go up, less and less people wanted to sell their Bitcoin. And you can see it even here when we just compare the green and red together. So that is kind of telling me that people are hopeful for Bitcoin right now in the spot markets. When we look at futures market, you can see currently a lot of people want to basically sell Bitcoin on the futures side. So here you can see $400 million of limit sell orders on the futures side, but on the spot side, we're not seeing that much sell pressure. So I feel like these limit sell orders, they need to be knocked out, because there's a lot of liquidity if they short Bitcoin, but they get completely wrecked in that short. That's a lot of liquidity that could be liquidated to the upside here. So I feel like that would make a lot of sense. Also, when we take a look at the actual liquidation data, you can see that most of the liquidity right now is basically in this pocket here. So from $86,000 to basically $87,000, there's a liquidity pocket for limit sell orders. And then obviously there's more limit sell orders once they get these short people who want to short this current price point, when they get activated, we will see even more short liquidations getting liquidated, which are currently not in the charts here. And then the next pocket would be from $88,000 to basically 90, let's say $90,000. Somewhere here is the second pocket, but this would be the first pocket to basically tag. Not a lot of not a lot of uh, long liquidations below the current price point, at least in the immediate vicinity. Let's change this to, let's say, 1 week. Let's see if that changes. The previous view was the 1 month view. Currently here, $74,000. There's a large amounts of liquidations there. 200 million, 200 million. Here is a 300 million. So this pocket here it seems to be very good, but also in the short term there is quite a bit of liquidity here, basically to $81,000, $80,600 as well in the short term. So could go basically either way on that from that point of view. Now going back to Bitcoin chart here, and I will give you my analysis where I think price might go next. When we look at the Bitcoin price, you can see that we're in this decision crux. Now, if Bitcoin falls below here, let's say it goes and tags at $80,000 or $81,000, from there, the best option, in my opinion, is that it goes back to the upside. We tag $87,000 or even $90,000, the second liquidity zone. Then I want Bitcoin to basically establish itself, and then we might look at explosive Bitcoin prices once again. But this is basically the last potential stretch for Bitcoin, because if what happens is that we go down here, we don't break out, but we fall below here. Now that would be the second time we basically go below the trend line. And usually if that happens, then it's bye-bye for Bitcoin. And I'm not saying bye-bye that Bitcoin goes to $30,000 and it's like a massive bear market. But what I am saying is that we're probably not seeing explosive growth in Bitcoin price anytime soon. If Bitcoin fails this test now and we do not stay above this long-term trend line, then let's take a look at what has happened before. Here is an example of what happened previously. We had a similar supportive trend line all the way to the upside. And here you can see, sorry, Bitcoin fell below the trend line, then it climbed itself back on top of it. And then we went basically to retouch the all-time high here on top of the trend line. Then we fell below the trend line once again, retouched the trend line to the upside, and that was basically the peak of 2021. From there, basically the bear market started. And then what was interesting from 2020 to 2021 bull market is that there was a secondary trend line as well that was respected, and the Bitcoin price actually fell below it almost on the first try, did not recover on top of it properly, and from there Bitcoin basically kept trailing that trend line to the upside until the bear market basically started from there. So these trend lines, even though I know some people are saying like, why are you talking about these meme lines? These don't mean anything. In my opinion, they mean a lot. And these have been very, very helpful. For example, here you can see a short-term trend line. Once that got broken, then Bitcoin went into a long-term price stagnation. So if we do a similar thing, we could be just, hammering sideways for quite a while until the uncertainty is leaving the markets, until the deals with Trump actually go through, and most of the scary things have passed. I would say most of the scary things from these tariffs have already passed, but even now, as I'm speaking, we are getting these escalations still. So it's not over, even though it might feel like, okay, we've been talking about tariffs for a couple of weeks already. Can we talk about something else? But the investors are getting shaky. And the more there's flip-flops, the more times Donald Trump says this, but does that, does this, then does something completely different. Investors get tired. And when they are tired, they are like, okay, whatever, I don't want to be part of this shakiness. So I'm just going to exit the markets for now. And let's see until it's a better time to get back in. And even now, Warren Buffett still hasn't invested in anything, as far as I know. So even Warren Buffett is still expecting more downside. So even though I'm hopeful, uh, I'm just saying that we might still see something very much more scary than we're currently seeing, because all of the elements are there. The conflict with Iran has not went away. The potential nuclear war from that, it still hasn't gone away. I don't think that will materialize, especially now because the bond yields went up. So Donald Trump cannot finance another war, and if they have to defend the defend the dollar, and they basically print more money to get all of the industry back, I don't think they have money for another war. But let's see how things continue to go from here. I'm currently hopeful. 80k, 81k bounce, then back to the upside here. That's kind of what I would like to see this week. If we just go straight back up on top of here, that would obviously be even better. But I'm currently hopeful, and let's see how things go from here. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this kind of content, then subscribe to the channel. I will see you on the next one, and bye bye.